So my name's Amanda Witucki. I go by the paper committee, kind of just for branding purposes. I thought that was like more fun. Witucki's kind of a strange last name to pronounce, so I just thought I'd make it cleaner. I have been doing this full time since 2020, trying to do it for a few years prior, but it was honestly like a 10, 15-year journey of getting to where I'm at now. I never thought I was going to be like a paper artist specifically. I thought I wanted to do something creative, but in 2011, when I first moved here, I met someone, and she was getting married, and she was like, I know we just met, do you want to be my bridesmaid? And so as I was like helping her with her wedding, I'm just like kind of a crafty person. I don't come from a lot of money, so I'm used to like, why pay full price when you can make it? And so I was like, you have an entire team of bridesmaids. Let's just make all this stuff so you don't have to pay for it on Etsy. And then after her wedding was so much fun and a huge success, we started a wedding business together. And we did that for a few years. A lot of things were kind of paper-based. Apparently, during the wedding industry, that period of time, 2011 to 2014, there was somewhere in there was an issue with flowers. There was like a drought that killed a lot of product. And so people were doing alternative methods for decoration, which just happened to be the years that we were in business. So we went by the confetti committee. So we did designing for weddings. And then that ended in 2015. My partner, she had a baby, her first baby, and my brother passed away unexpectedly, and it all happened at the same time. And so I was like, I think we should just stop doing this. Like, my heart's not really in it. Because you want to have good energy for weddings. You don't want to bring your sadness. But anyway, so I took like a couple years off and was like, I don't know what my next creative venture will be, but I want to do something creative. And I just took time to grieve and started like slowly doing homework and figuring out what it is that I want to do. I would, do I want to make little paper plants to sell on Etsy? Gosh, I'm giving you like every single part of the story.
That's okay though.
Okay.
That's good. No,
There's
we want to know all of it.
All right.
That's
There's
fine.
long and short versions, but sometimes I don't talk about my brother.
Yeah.
But anyway, so after several years of kind of like dabbling in homework and like figuring out what I want to do, I almost was like a host for a craft show, some sort of like online based YouTube series craft show. And maybe they just wanted me as a guest. And so I did like a little bit of an interview process, and I did not get it. And I was convinced, they didn't tell me why, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I did not present my personality well. I was like leaning into I'm awkward, but it can be charming. And like, no, I'm way more than that. I just didn't know how to sell myself. I didn't have video footage of me. So I was like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel, and I'm going to do crafts, and I'm going to figure something out there. And then if this opportunity ever comes up again, there'll be an entire archive of what my personality is, and I'll never miss this opportunity again. So my very first video was making a paper plane. I made a second video where I was trying to just make a little decorative origami thing, and I was doing research of like, oh, what should it be? I found this bauble pendant thing, and it's made from 2 pieces of origami. And as I created it, I took one of the pieces and inverted it, and that is the shape that like gave me a career. So I was like, well, it's not really that interesting when you make it as a ball, but if you flatten it and glue them together, you can make like a massive installation. And that was my first one in 2018. Never made another video. Totally took a different path and was like, well, I guess I'm doing art now. So I did that in like large scale installations. I was trying to market myself towards like South by Southwest and all the event industry. One of the big problems with the wedding business that we had is that people didn't have the budget for the level of tediousness that we were doing.
Gotcha.
They'd come to us with $500 to $1,000 asking for a $10,000 kind of project. So it just wasn't the right market. And I mean, lo and behold, the art market, they'll spend $1,000 on something that matches their beige couch. Like, it's just a totally different demographic. So I was doing a lot of these large scale installations, and my friend was like, why don't you make everything smaller, all your modules smaller, and glue it on canvas, and now it's art. And you can sell it as art. So that's how I got to where I'm at. That was, I think 2018 was my first time translating it into canvas. And then, excuse me, I did my first Austin studio tour, and I think it was 2018 or 2019. And then the pandemic hit, and then I was able to like focus on everything and make a bunch of art, sell it on Instagram. It did really well. And then I got into galleries and different things, and that's kind of where I'm at.
I love that though, because right, like you took a chance and you tried something new with the video, and that kind of led you to this career path that you're on
Exactly.
now, right, as an artist. And it was only just you trying to figure out, like, okay, what am I going to do, and putting yourself out there that allowed you to discover this is really where I want to be spending all my time. And I think that's important for artists, where sometimes we're like hesitant to want to try things or afraid maybe. And I think it was your sheer just like, I'm just going to try. I'm going to try. And you never did another video again, right? But it led you to something even more incredible that you're passionate about. So what are some of the things that you've been up to that have been large scale over the past, what has it been now, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. So that one style that I had started with, I did that quite a few times. And then I did get hired last year with the San Diego Museum of Art. They just found me through Instagram. Yeah, and they hired me to do an installation during their annual fundraising event. They always bring in new artists, like 3 to 4 installation artists for every single year that they host this event. It's called Art Alive. And they had me do, the room was like 60 feet by 30 feet by 60 feet. And they were like, cover the whole thing.
Wow.
And I was like, the biggest I'd ever done was 15 feet long. And I was like, this is a total of like 200 feet. They wanted a ceiling installation. It was like overwhelming, but they were so helpful. They're used to putting on this event. They need the event to be successful. So they were like, what do you need? You want a team to help you when you're there? We'll get the scissor lift. You got to get certified. That's like super easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't do anything. But yeah, they just like totally held my hand and made sure I felt supported and everything. So it ended up being super easy. Didn't look the way I thought it was going to, because nothing ever does. But I was stoked. They even let me make art to sell there, which is not normally what you do in a museum situation. It's more of a gallery thing. But I was like, I got to make some more money for coming out here. And I made like a series of 9 small pieces, kind of like in the same design as the installation. It has like little flowers and stuff. And I did an artist talk, and I sold every single piece. And all the people that were there for the artist talk were like 40 to 60 years old, like art connoisseur people.
Lovely.
And several of them like walked up to the person who had put the event on, and they were like, that girl's going places. And I was like, oh, what a compliment. You didn't even tell me. You told someone else. Like, that's how I know you meant it, you know? So that was a huge highlight. And then this year I did an installation at the Austin Airport. That was up from March until just now. It came down like a week ago. Yeah.
The large panel, at the Austin Airport. I love that. That's incredible that they give those opportunities. But let's go back to your time in San Diego. How instrumental was being able to have accessibility to the resources and the team to be able to bring your vision to life?
I mean, that was everything. I probably would have been stifled by fear of like not even knowing where to start. I didn't like scissor lifts and renting stuff. That didn't make sense. I didn't understand, like, especially like renting things in another city, but they were like, nope, they come in all the time. We'll take care of it. Because along with making art that goes on the walls, we had like a large panel that was suspended from the ceiling, and then they had to like put that on a pulley system. It wasn't a pulley system. It was like a crane. And they took care of everything. They cut out the panels that I adhered everything to. Like I really had it so easy. So, I mean, shout out to Sarah Grossman with the San Diego Museum of Art. She was awesome. But they also had a person there to help me, just like under my direction, whatever I needed from them. He was a creative artist in San Diego. And so he helped me, and he was like, totally understood my vision. You know, like a lot of this stuff, you got to kind of just feel it out. Does it look good? Does it feel good to your bones to look at this? And he like understood that mindset since he was an artist too. So yeah, it was huge. They got us lodging and everything. We really just had to show up, drive our U-Haul in with all the art, and then unload it. We had a full week to do the installation. So
that's incredible. They just really empowered you to just be you and create from, without any stress, really, is what it sounds like. Oh, man. Let's take a pause real quick. This is going to die. I'll be right back.
Okay.
We'll be fast. I'm going to go behind this camera. Sorry.
It's okay. That's like everything that's being recorded is there, right?
All the audio, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's okay though, because it was a good like natural breaking point, which is good.
Is this okay with the? I moved my microphone to the side.
Yeah,
It's still
that's
getting
okay.
okay.
I hear you pretty clear on the headphones, and it looks like it's picking up fairly well. But
Okay.
I give you something real quick.
Yeah, I'm just talking over here. This is where I'm talking. This is the direction.
Yeah, no. You're
Okay.
You're
Okay.
fine. Okay. Cool.
You're like a little too big for all of these small areas.
Because usually we have all of this out there, and I usually have somebody actually running this, but they couldn't make it today.
Oh.
And so I was like, okay, well, the good thing is I know how everything gets set up and done, so we should be okay.
Yeah.
But no. Okay. Cool. So we're talking about San Diego. We're talking about being empowered to
And
have
they
a
helped.
team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so now let's dive into. So okay. So along your journey, talking about people being able to help you, right? Like, how instrumental has it been to have a supporting community to really help you bring your art to life here in Austin?
I mean, Austin's very supportive. I do think part of it is paper is a niche. You know, I'm not another painter. I think it would be a lot harder for me if I was in a more competitive. Like, there's really only a couple other paper artists in Austin, so I kind of have a little bit of a leg up with just that. You know, a lot of times when people are curating something and they like a variety of mediums, there's really only like one or two paper people to choose from. So I do get opportunities a little easier. Hashtag blessed. Thank you so much. Knock on wood. But yeah, I mean, Austin's been a super supportive community. Even just like figuring out from the beginning in 2020 of like, how do I get into galleries? I went to Art for the People first. And I'm kind of like, I mean, you've worked with me now, so you know I'm pretty quick to respond to emails, very like thorough with everything. And I've always had that kind of mindset. I learned something in the wedding business where I was always doing homework. I was always researching what was going on. Have you ever heard of a styled shoot?
A style shoot, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was like a big thing in the wedding industry, is to do a couple styled shoots. That's how you get your new ideas out there. Your kind of like more experimental stuff. And I was like always researching the new styled shoots. Like there's like 5 main blogs. I check them every single day.
You're good.
Okay. And so I knew what they were looking for. I knew what they wanted, and I knew who the big guns were. And so I arranged our first styled shoot with my partner. I was like, this is what we should do. You know, it's almost the end of summer. Let's do like an end of summer, beginning of fall. Like I just knew like how to have your finger on the pulse of what people are looking for. And we got these photographers, they submitted it, and they're like, oh my God, it's going to be featured in 2 weeks. Like that never happens. Usually you have to wait for 3 months. And I was like, I know it's because I did my homework and I knew the timing of when to do certain things. So I've always taken that mindset of like, do your homework, get a sense of what's going on in your environment, in your local community, and like see what people need. Because people that put on events, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into it. So if you can make things easier for them by, oh, I see you normally do this kind of stuff. Maybe you'd like to have this type of artist there. Like, what can you bring that they don't have, that they don't realize they don't have? Really, I guess it's just like sneaky marketing manipulation in a way of just like, know what's going on and how can you insert yourself without being pushy.
Well, that's smart, right? Doing the research, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that you're set up for the success that you're looking to achieve. I think taking the time to understand that, you know, how you can distinguish yourself from other artists, right? I think the big thing that you noted is you're one of few paper artists here in town. So that does give you a strong opportunity where they're looking for something different and there's not a ton of you to pick from.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just being prepared. Because, yeah, like you said, you're the first one to respond on any of the emails and just very detailed and very clear with everything. And so that goes a long way because it shows your professionalism. And it shows that this isn't just a hobby for you. This is something that you're wholeheartedly committed to as a full-time artist. And I think that's what really separates those that are great from those that are just going to kind of just keep trying and never really find their footing. It's because they're just not like, this is my profession, this is my business, I need to treat it as such and then move forward as such.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a little bit lucky because I enjoy doing that stuff. A lot of my friends are artists and they don't enjoy social media. They don't, or like having to think about how to market yourself, or even just the specifics of like, I like doing research. I like looking for new opportunities of like, how can I get my art outside of Austin? Yeah, I enjoy that. So I know I'm a little bit fortunate with that part because it doesn't feel like work to me. It feels like a fun puzzle, you know?
Yeah, that's the biggest, I feel like, challenge right now, especially as social media, right, continues to become more prevalent in our day to day, it's like most of the artists that I talk to, they're like, oh, now I got to add this component into my things that I have to do, because it is super important to gain that awareness, to drive that traction. It's like you have to be on there, you have to be posting, you have to be engaging, you have to be the engager. You can't just wait for people to only reach out to you. And it's this kind of dance where you might get lucky and get away without having to do it, but 9 out of 10 times, especially today, it's like you kind of have to be on there and you have to be showing yourself, creating. And even now more so when there's a constant change in like the way the algorithm works on, let's say, Instagram, and what it's actually looking to boost without you having to put any money into it. And so that's important that you do appreciate that, because when you love something, it makes it like, oh, that much easier.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right. Oh man. So what else do you have going on around town in the next coming weeks, months, year? You tell me.
Well, I mean, this is the best time of year. It's the beginning of fall. So we have the Austin Studio Tour coming up. I have a show in 1 week from today. Yeah.
Awesome.
September 14th, Saturday at Highland Collective. It's a duo show with myself and Kyle Saldana. He goes by 10i Net. It's like a palindrome.
Okay.
I can send it to you. But anyway, his name's Kyle. He does, he likes to paint blankets.
Okay.
He like really loves quilts and has like his mother would make quilts and things. So he paints a lot of blankets, and he's also a big like pattern person. He works with a pen plotter and makes these like super abstract patterns. He also incorporates technology into his art. But we're both geometric pattern people, and he took a route that's got this technology and different things with like structure, no color, and I'm all color, very analog, no technology. So we're similar. We're also friends. We're similar but very, very different. So we're doing a show together, and with the piece that I made for the Austin Airport, it's very much like a paper textile, kind of like a quilt. So there's like a nice lead in, you know, with he's painting these quilts and I'm making things that could be seen as like a quilt or a textile. So we're doing a show together. I kind of forced him into color. I was like, I want to do a pastel show. And he's like, that's so girly. I'm like, do it, man. So he's doing kind of his version of pastel, which naturally is very moody. Love you, Kyle, but geez, it's good. I like it. And then I did a couple of Grayscale pieces, kind of a nod to him, which I hated. That was no fun. I'll not do that ever again. Commission only for Grayscale. But yeah, so that's coming up, and I'm really excited. We have this guy, Brandon Meegans, I think his last name is. He is Tattoos to You on Instagram. He will tattoo things you present him. So we have awesome. Created like our own tattooable versions of our art. And he's going to be offering tattoos at our event.
That's incredible.
On Saturday. Yeah.
That's going to be so much fun. I love that you were able to like get out of your comfort zone and work in some of that grayscale, right? And just be like, you know, okay, I'm going to meet you in the middle. I'm forcing you to do some color in the pastels. Let's kind of collaborate here. And I think that's nice though, because then, yeah, the juxtaposition of like the very bright colors that you work with and maybe some of the gray, moody colors that he's working with is going to create a nice separation, but still feel like a nice, complete kind of like show. So yeah. I think that's a good direction that you took, and forcing each other to kind of step outside of those boundaries, because that's really where you get to grow as an artist. Because who knows, maybe you would have loved working in Grayscale. You didn't, but who knows, right?
Usually when I do try something, I learn something in a way that takes me in a new direction. So, and I might just be being stubborn and have lost the opportunity to learn something here. But yeah, I did name the Grayscale piece, I Did This for Kyle. That's its title. But like for example, the airport, when they reached out to me and they wanted me to do an installation, my goal was I want to do something different that's not that same module that I've been doing for the past couple of years, because Austin has seen enough of that. I'd like to challenge myself to think of something new. And I came up with that by just trying to think of like a simple template. So I took a net. A net has thousands and thousands of holes in it. What can I paper-wise stick through these holes, bend it, contort it, cut it? It's just like an easy template to start on. And so I came up with, it's kind of looks like scale mail, like chain mail. And then scale mail is like making it look like dragon scales. It's kind of like the people that go to Renfest and stuff that's like a term they would know for sure. So anyway, so I was like, I'm going to cut the paper like scales, not just rounded. I want it to be like slightly, where am I going all of this detail?
That's good though.
Okay.
Bring the detail.
Well, anyway, this was all just to do something different for the Austin Airport, right? So I do this installation and I didn't have money to spend. So I'm using all the scraps from Like I keep all the scraps because why not? You know, like if I cut a piece of paper down from 8.5 by 11, and then I have a scrap that's 2.5 inches wide, then I cut that down. Then I got a 1 inch scrap. So I just keep getting smaller and smaller. And I made this piece almost entirely from scraps, from trash. And I wasn't even trying to think about selling it on like the sustainability element. I was just trying to make a reel that might do well. So I was like, let's take some scraps and make it into art. And so that video ended up going viral. And then I was like, wait, it actually is really cool. And I mean, it looked cool, but I was like not sure how to manipulate it. I had a hard time with the netting itself, the way like the physics pulled on it. It was kind of awkward. So then I switched it up, got different nets. And now I'm like taking those pieces, and it's kind of like I'm a dressmaker, and I'm adhering them to canvas and like draping and tucking them like as if I was a fashion designer. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of pieces that are like that in this next show. But it's like, this is all because of the airport. It like took me in this other direction. And then I realized sustainability is a big part of what I do. I never talked about it because I thought I was just like being a hoarder, trying to save money, being cheap. Like that's what I thought I was doing. But like, nah, dude, rebrand that. That's sustainability.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, yeah, I'm very sustainable.
I wonder why that happened.
It's saving energy.
Yeah, it heard your sustainability claim.
Yeah, but I mean, long story short is all of this came from me just wanting to do something different from the airport. So I kind of, anytime there's a challenge, I do always look at it as like something's going to come out the other end that, you know, you grow from. And now with this whole like sustainability concept, my scraps are getting smaller and smaller. And so now I have these long, really skinny strips of paper. And now I've started doing paper weaving because you just need super skinny strips. So that's what's coming up for the fall.
That's incredible, but let's talk about like that being resourceful and right, because I mean, let's be real, art can get expensive if you're constantly having to buy materials, if you're constantly having to buy the tools that you need to create the craft that you see in your head, right? Mm-hmm. And so the fact that you're able to not just discard everything that you've already used, yet finding a place and opportunity to use that, how instrumental has that been for your career?
Well, so I've always, like for the Austin studio tour, my goal was to always do an installation every year, and that was a non-funded thing. So I was always trying to not spend money when I did that. So throughout the year, I'll order something and maybe the color isn't what I thought, so I can't use it for that project. None of that, I don't do returns. And a lot of it is I do feel guilty about the landfills. Like that is something in my personal life that I'm kind of obsessive about. And so anyway, I was already in the mindset of like I would make one installation per year that essentially is free because I didn't have to pay for supplies. Again, that was me saving money, but that is sustainable. Mm-hmm. And so taking that mindset and applying it to new concepts, not just for those installations you do once a year, but let's apply it to, okay, we're going to do a new art show that's based off of this new style. My scraps are this size. That means the pieces I'm going to make have to get smaller and smaller because the scraps are getting smaller and smaller. And it's kind of just like changed my mindset. Also with like the traditional shape that I use, there's a corner that I cut off and it creates these cute little triangle confettis. And I've been saving those for a long time to use as like confetti filler for orders. It's just, awesome. It's cute. Yeah. And then I've also given some of those scraps to a local paper maker, and she incorporates the confetti bits into her handmade paper. Shout out Kelly Chambliss. What's up? Yeah. So there's lots of different areas that I'm trying to reuse. I mean, if you go in my studio, there's just like bags of different sizes of paper and drawers of scraps of paper, and everything is sorted by smaller and smaller sizes. Yeah.
But that's important, right? Because not only are you reusing the resources that you have, you're actually reusing them for unique projects. You're not just like, oh, I'll see how I'll fit them in later. You're like, oh, I know how I can use this later. You're thinking that far ahead. So how important is it to be open to just like these ideas as they really just come intuitively as you're like working through one project?
Wait, what's the question?
Just being open as far as like as new ideas come in to while you're working on like a particular project.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll look at a scrap and think I know how to use that. Sometimes I just keep, now that I'm in this different mindset, I used to discard things when they were like smaller than an inch wide, but now I'm like, I'm only allowed to throw things away if they're smaller than a centimeter by a centimeter. Like I really keep everything now. And it's just all sorted. So sometimes I'll not know what the purpose is for a certain shape. Right now I've got a bunch of squares. I don't know what I'm gonna do with that, but I'll figure it out later. And then like sometimes a project comes up. For example, I have a project I'm doing in January. That's all, they actually are all about sustainability, and I connected with them long before this whole mindset shift. And I was like, maybe I'll make some of the paper recycled or upcycled. Wouldn't that be good? And she was like, oh, it's a great idea. So now I've been saving twisty ties from my asparagus bundles or whatever, like crazy stuff, instead of zip ties to use. And so I can't wait to present to her and be like, so I have a pile of trash that I'm going to wrap in paper that you won't recognize. I was going to buy pool noodles to do it, but I think that I don't need to do that now. So yeah, I think it's more of the mindset makes me open to seeing the possibilities of everything. But it is a borderline problem because then I keep saving a little bit of, it's too much. Because I also have like a side business where I collect glassware, and like that takes up a lot of boxes. Like it's just getting to be a little bit too much.
But it sounds like you do have some constraints, right? You said like nothing smaller than a centimeter by a centimeter, right? So you are at least putting some boundaries around like what you're keeping to kind of like help minimize the amount of just things that pile up in your studio. Because at times, like, I mean, in any studio, you go in there and sometimes it's like to the roof with like all the materials. And it's the nature of the beast, right? Like sometimes I do woodwork and I have just a bunch of wood scraps that maybe I'll never use for anything, but I look at them and I'm like, I just can't toss you right now.
Yeah. That's funny. I just bought a bunch of wood scraps.
Well, if you need some, I got some.
I will help you. I will help you with that. Just a little bit.
Yeah, no, anyway. So, you know, it seems like you've had a pretty positive trajectory this entire time as an artist from the moment that you discovered like, okay, this is what I'm passionate about. What have been some of like the challenges that have come your way and the ways that you found an opportunity to overcome those?
I mean, the biggest thing was shipping my artwork because it's fragile.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you're first starting off selling art, you don't have access to those clients that will spend more than $2,000 on something and understand that it's going to cost $700 to ship it. Like I didn't have access to those clients in the beginning, but that was always, once I wanted to start shipping it, it was going to be like $400 or $500 to ship.
Wow.
Because I have to have someone make a custom wooden crate and then ship the wooden crate, so that gets kind of expensive. But really, I got around that by not shipping for a long time, and then eventually there were clients that had the budget and understood the cost of like the white glove shipping service. I guess, yeah. I don't really know if that's an answer of how I got around it. I guess I just waited till the clients caught up with me, and I eventually had access to people that understood the art budget kind of thing, if that makes sense.
But I do love the fact that you've been able to, again, just find opportunities to overcome like any challenges that have been thrown your way, right? I think that is one of the most important things as an artist, is just to find a way to win. Because a lot of times you have to be kind of gritty and resourceful and make your way into this space, because nobody's just going to come to you and be like, okay, you're an artist now, congratulations. Like you have to let people know who you are. You have to shine when it's your opportunity to shine. You have to really just come prepared. So I think that's a testament to why things maybe have been so kind of like easy along the route for you, right?
Yeah, and I am the kind of person that like anything, not like toxic positivity, but like when things happen that don't work out, I'm like, okay, well, what did I learn? And I mean, there's been several times where I've applied for a grant or a proposal for a show and I didn't get it. And then, you know, all those things you apply for, they come to fruition like 6 to 12 months later. And when I didn't get them 6 to 12 months later, I'm like, man, I'm so glad I don't have to do that thing now, because I'm not even in love with that concept anymore. And it's totally fine that it worked out that way. So I guess that's also an openness I always try to keep with my mindset of, you know, if something didn't work out, it's okay. It's making way for another opportunity, or maybe there was a blessing you didn't realize in that. So.
Yeah. And I agree. I think that's a big one, because sometimes you can take like not necessarily losses, but lessons pretty personal. Where you're like, oh, well, what is it about me that, you know, wasn't right, or whatever the case may be. But sometimes it is nothing about you. You did nothing wrong. It's just, you know, that wasn't the time. It wasn't the moment for that. And like, I think of that often, because even before I opened this space, I had tried to open another gallery right before COVID. And literally, like, I was about to sign a lease with a space and I was about to go all in. And then a month later, COVID happened. And I was like, I am so glad that I didn't get that space, that I didn't put that overhead on me, because nobody would have been able to go. There would have been nothing to do. I would have just been paying rent on this empty space. And so sometimes it's, it's just not the right moment for the things that you want to do. And I think, like you said, is like being okay with that and understanding that it maybe isn't the right moment then, and then knowing that in the future the right moment's going to come about, and just trusting the process of the universe. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I'm a little woo woo in that sense too. I'm very trusting. I just lost my train of thought, but I had. Oh, well, also, I'm a big believer in don't grow too fast. Slow and steady wins the race. Because, I mean, I've seen a lot of people that blow up real quick and then they just kind of max out the market, or like people's interest in their art when it's like all the time. So I try to, like, that's just another way of like not getting disappointed if you don't get certain opportunities. Like, it's okay. I've done enough this year. I try to always do at least one show per year. Do at least one new concept per year. That way I'm always growing personally. And I always try to like apply to at least like 3 different juried exhibitions outside of Austin. So I know that I'm growing outside of Austin. Like, I have kind of specific goals that will help me with different aspects of like me as an artist, me as a business person, and me as a brand.
How important is it having that business skill set as you go out into the market as an artist? I know sometimes it's very difficult for artists to dive into that business portion of everything, whether it's just the finances or just the reaching out to individuals. Where have you found an opportunity where you're like, this is a really good 1, 2, 3 process for being business oriented when it comes to either marketing yourself or selling your artwork or anything?
So since half of the art that I do is installation based art, that is a real easy way for me to figure out how I can insert myself. So like, especially when I was first starting off, when I was like interested and open to doing things for no pay, but just for exposure. I don't do that anymore. But knowing like, okay, if I'm an installation artist, let's think about where in Austin has art installations, or where could they benefit from that. And so my very first installation that I brought using that new style that I discovered, I took it to the Future Front. They were Craft Her at the time, and they always had their big event at the fair market, and there was an opportunity for some sort of show-stopping backdrop. And so I just reached out and was like, hey, I would like to do this. And they're like, gosh, we can't pay you. And I was like, I didn't think you would. It's okay. I'll do it for free. I'm ready for it. And they're like, sure, go for it. And that's what got my first big like connection to a couple that saw it, and they wanted to commission me to do something in their home. And that's what took me on the like art path and not just events. So I guess I don't think that necessarily answers what you're asking, but knowing what you can offer and then finding ways to insert that and seeing where there's like a gap in that. So since my art was installation, I was looking for like, how can I bring installations out into the world? And then I'm just very structured with like, I try every month I make a set of goals of what I want to do, small goals for just like get this stuff done. And then a conceptual goal of like reach out to at least one new gallery that doesn't know who you are, or connect to someone. So I always am creating opportunities to either be networking and meeting new people, or being able to bring my art somewhere. And that kind of practice, if you always make sure you're doing something new like that once a month, like you don't know what you're going to get from that. You're going to either meet someone or have a connection, or maybe it's just a client, someone that wants to buy your art. But that's a great way to start. It's kind of like loose and open-ended.
No, that's good.
Okay.
No, yeah. That was really good. Because what it seems like is like, again, tying back to kind of when you mentioned you do the research, is like you're identifying these opportunities for yourself, and then you're coming prepared with the things that you need to do to when they say yes to the opportunity. You're not like, okay, let me come back to you with XYZ. It's like, okay, fantastic, I'm ready to go. Here's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is the big separator from like, okay, well, I'll get back to you in a few weeks. Because sometimes people that are throwing these events or that are looking for these installations or whatever the case may be, they don't have 2 to 3 weeks to wait for you to get everything together. They're ready to go now.
Yeah.
And so you're coming to the table prepared with something, and then you're like, plug and play. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say, just in terms of like general business advice, what I've learned from connecting with different galleries and stuff, I guess it's not super common that people respond quickly to emails. It's not super common that people are thorough with like, here's my art, here's a photo of my art, like just trying to make it easy. If you're trying to introduce yourself to a gallery or a curator, make it short and sweet, but give them what they want to know. Don't just like tease about your art, describe it, and have this long poem about it, but like just give them photos, you know? Kind of treat it like you've got 30 seconds to get them interested, and don't waste their time, because otherwise they'll just move on. But yeah, I didn't realize that that's not super common to be aggressive with the emails, quick to respond. So I always tell people, like, respond same day if you can. Always, you know, keep your notifications on with emails and stuff like that. And that is so much of the battle. So many people take too long to respond, or don't follow the deadlines appropriately, or don't get the right kind of photo. Take good quality photos of your art. All you need is your iPhone and just decent lighting. Yeah, it seems to me like that. I thought that was kind of the baseline and everyone did that, but I've learned that not everyone does do that. So if you do that, you're already above 80%. So, I mean, I just made that number up, but that feels good.
Sounded right.
You're above 50%, that's for sure. So, like, why not, you know?
No, absolutely. I think the ability to communicate rapidly is super important, because, again, it's like you can miss that window of opportunity where there might be interest in what you're trying to do. And I think maybe sometimes it comes from just hesitancy. Maybe artists aren't sure of themselves yet, or they're not super confident in what they're doing, so they kind of dance around what they're trying to do in hopes that they get some sort of feedback, and they're like, oh, okay, then I can give them this, right? They get kind of this back and forth push and pull. But what it sounds like is you're like, no, here's what I can do for you. Here's what I already have. Here's what I'm ready to do. And that goes a long way. Especially like even just being able to show your work here, right? Like when I sent out that first email, you came back right away and you're like, perfect. What are the dates? When are we trying to get this done? Here's what I have, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that is fantastic. I was like, you're on board, anything you need. And that's kind of what led to us being able to do this podcast as well. Because even the day that you came to drop off, like you came with a very professional attitude. You stayed and talked for a little bit. It wasn't just like, okay, here's my work, bye. It's like you got a second to get to know me just a little bit. We took a moment to get to know you just a little bit. And those little intangibles build up. They're all building blocks for everything you're trying to do, and it adds so much value as how you're perceived as an artist. And so it's very appreciated. So I think that's great insight as far as like how you can create a little bit of edge for yourself without having to do too much. So I love that. I especially just even going back to just kind of how you set yourself up for like monthly goals, annual goals, right? I think that sometimes when you're an artist, it's easy to just be like, I'm just going to do what feels right in the moment, right? Because a lot of art is very to what you're feeling, how you're feeling. And sometimes that's not the best approach for business.
Yeah.
And those are two different worlds, unfortunately. It's nice when you get to blend them together and be a part of both. But like the feelings are great for your art, but the business is very just as a matter of fact sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I love that. So how has your time in Austin been as an artist? How have you feel the community's received your work, and just how you've been able to blossom as an artist?
I mean, it's great. There are some specific galleries that I would love to show at. But again, slow and steady wins the race. So, yeah, I think it's been a really great experience. There's a lot of organizations, like Almost Real Things does a lot for the community, especially people that are really just starting and like, where do we go from here? They have like their mentorship program and stuff. The Austin Studio Tour is super invaluable, just like the amount of new people that will see your art that have never seen it before. And I think it's a pretty supportive community here. Yeah, I've had a good experience.
No, I love that. I think you hit it right on the head. I think for the most part, everybody's very welcoming. Everybody is like with big arms when you start out, and they always want to get to know you and what you're doing and how long you've been creating art for. And I think that's super encouraging as an artist, especially if you're just starting off, right? Where maybe, again, you're not very certain if people are going to like your art, or if it's going to be well received, or maybe even just being able to take the feedback that other artists can give you. And it's like, hey, this is really good, but have you tried maybe this or this and this? And not in a sense of like, internalize it and then just move strictly by what other artists are telling you, but trust that there's a voice of reason with some of these artists who are maybe have had that same problem, or maybe have had a challenge that has been similar, and they're like trying to save you just a little bit of time. I think that's the biggest thing. What has been your biggest goal for this year?
Well, since I knew I was going to be at the airport, and I knew that was a long 6-month thing, I wanted to be ready to accept whatever comes from that. And I wanted to level up professionally. So revamped my artist statement, although I revamped my artist statement and then I started talking to an art advisor in Australia, and I was like so proud of this artist statement. I had a friend help me. It was like the day after I finished it. She was like, yeah, go ahead and send me an artist statement and all that. And I sent it to her and she was like, do you send that to people? And I was like, yes, I do. She's like, let's work on that. I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I just spent like 3 days on this. So I've avoided fixing that since then. But I mean, it doesn't exist anywhere. It was just a printout at the airport. It's not on my website or anything. But I did have to like level up my website, keep it up to date with new photos. There was a bunch of old stuff that I don't do that I had to take down. Gosh, it doesn't sound like that was that intense of a goal, but that was something. The website, having a newsletter, all that leveling up, I have been putting off for 4 entire years. So I got that down. I've also been working on my Patreon, so trying to get more people there. Although I don't think I make any money on my Patreon. I think I break even. I'm such a people pleaser. We might want to cut this. I mean, I don't know.
We'll see. I don't know.
But like I have this Patreon, and usually with Patreon, you get physical things in the mail as your rewards, and it's too labor intensive what I do to give people physical rewards for giving me $7 a month.
Yeah.
So people are always wanting tutorials, which is ironic because that's how I got started into this. And now I'm like, I don't love doing tutorials or workshops, but so I do tutorials 4 times a year, and coming up with a concept for that is kind of overwhelming because I want it to be original. You know, there's tutorials everywhere on Pinterest. So anyway, it's a lot of work. Yeah, I haven't done the exact numbers on it because I'm avoiding it because I'm pretty sure like I probably make $3 per person at the end of the day because they end up getting originals shipped to them once or twice per year.
Gotcha.
And you know, my tiers are $15 and $30. Like that's a lot of money for someone to give me every month. And I wish I could show them like, trust me, I only make like $10. Like you get everything. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if the Patreon's going to be a thing for me forever. It was meant to become a way of having passive income, and it is not passive at all. And I have created it in such a way that the more people that join, the more work I have to do. It's the opposite of passive income. So I think I'm deciding it right now. All right. Maybe that won't be forever. Goal for next year, quit the Patreon.
But it seems like you set some pretty big goals, and even just revamping your website, like that's a big undertaking, like making sure that you have everything written really well, making sure that it looks really sharp, making sure that you have the content for the site. And even just the newsletter for marketing purposes, making sure that you have that set up properly, making sure that I don't know if you're doing a monthly or a quarterly newsletter, but even then just making sure that you're staying on top of that, making sure that you're being, again, the engager with your community or your audience who has found an affinity for your work. I think those are big goals because sometimes artists don't even have a website or they don't have anywhere where they can showcase their work, yet they're trying to get into these galleries and they're still missing some of just like the basics. So no, I think those are big goals.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, technology's hard for me. So that's why it took 4 years to get a newsletter.
That's okay though. But hey, you know, like you said earlier, it's all at the right time, right? And you know, I feel like now is a really good time to make sure that you have it as your career continues to just go on this upward trajectory, right? And you're being more personable. And now even as you transition off of your Patreon, maybe this is something you'd be like, hey, listen, we're moving away from this Patreon, but we're still going to have this newsletter. Please sign up for my newsletter here. You can transfer some of those fans and some of that audience over here where you can still have that connection with them, but now you're not so much handcuffed to having to create constantly for them. And if they truly appreciate your work, they'll go right with you and they'll be willing to hear everything you have to say.